Crack that whip.
Good morning. It's a little bit past 10 o'clock. We'll open up the Senate Education Committee executive session. We're only going to go through bills and get them out of the committee. So before we do that, please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Senator Prentice, you're close to it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You didn't bring my gavel. I left it at home.
You could just use my phone. Ready?
We'll open up the executive session of the Senate Education Committee. What is this thing here?
This is great. All organized by Ryan for us. So,
Thank you,
look at all
Ryan.
these folders. If you're looking for notes, let's go there.
So, SB 33. Now, I have received an amendment from Barry Christina that he wants for both 33 and 208. And I'm assuming that all of you received the same. Yes? No?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I did. I'm not going to speak for anyone else.
Should be. I've got one in my folder from Barrett.
I had looked at it earlier today. What did I do? Yeah, let's have a motion to.
You want to enter motion to enter into executive session?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are in executive session.
And we're taking up Senate Bill 33.
Yes. And we have an amendment by Barry Christina that he has written both for 33 and 208. So I don't know what we do with that. Have you had a chance to read it? I just got it this morning, so.
Senator Ward, does Senator Altshuler want to talk about 208 and this amendment?
Well, we have the same amendment for both.
For both of them, yeah,
For
that's why I
both.
wondered,
So,
since 208 is her bill, if she
oh,
wants,
I see, okay.
yeah, I don't know.
You can talk about 208 and let's see what we do with both of them.
All right.
I don't know if you've had time to review it, I just thought since it affects one of your bills, and Senator Avard, it's not here on 33, that you might want to say if you found this amenable, the amendment amenable.
Yeah, well, I have deep concerns about the language that is used in this amendment. So I've done a little bit of a markup. And paragraph 2, it just is clunky, but
Are you talking about the amendment?
I'm talking about
Okay.
the amendment.
Okay.
Paragraph 2, that, it's clunky language. Took me a couple of tries, a couple of reads through it to realize that the last sentence should actually be the second sentence to make the whole thing flow and make sense. But that's just grammar issues. But I have an issue with line 25. The applying contemporary local community standards is, what does that mean? Like, it's undefined, and the contemporary local community standards of one community can be wildly different than the contemporary local community standards of another community in the state, which means, some material would be available in some places and not in others. On page 2.
In respect to that issue,
Sure.
and I admit that when you read it, it can come off vague, or you can kind of like, well, all right, one community may be different than the other. But a lot of laws, RSAs, a lot of states, when they have any law that applies to like lewdness or any type of adult material, pornography, something like that, they all use that language came from the courts, and it's pretty widely used. If you're sending out lewd images, you'll see that language appear as well. So that tends to be that language exists in law already. Is the point I'm making. As much as I agree, it can occasionally. You would think a crime in one place or a violation in one place is the same somewhere else, but under the way it's written, technically could.
Right.
Your interpretation's right, but it's also consistent. That language is consistently used in several areas.
I understand that it is a reflection of a legal term, but it is in reference to the current norms and values held by people living in a specific geographic area, used to determine whether something is considered offensive or inappropriate, particularly when evaluating if material is obscene under the law. Essentially, what the average person in that community would deem acceptable at that time. And so my objection is that it is still a squishy space where what is offensive or inappropriate or obscene in one community would be not necessarily deemed the same in another community. And that is, I don't think that that's a good way to apply public policy for a statewide law. If there's a more succinct definition, legal definition that narrows that application of contemporary local community standards to reflect New Hampshire being the local versus a ward in Manchester being the local compared to Lebanon, compared to Portsmouth, compared to Wyndham being the local, then I would be a little more open to that being a state standard versus a true community standard. So I think if it's going to, I don't like this language, but if people like this language, I would insist that it be further defined.
Okay.
On page 2, lines 1 and 2, whether the supplemental material taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, determined by what?
Which section are you looking at?
I'm on page 2, lines
Yeah,
1 and 2, part
Oh, line
C.
2, okay.
So it's
Okay.
Lines 1 and 2,
Yeah.
it's in gray, highlighted in gray, or it was when it got printed out in my copy. So what's the determination for this? It's a literary, artistic, political, or scientific value as determined by what?
So that again is what the Supreme Court decided when they established what is and is not pornography. That's just their definition. Again, I understand it can be.
It's not referenced as such, though. I hear what you're
But-
saying, but it's not referenced as such here.
But
So-
that language, when I say that it's like the landmark case on what is and is not pornography, like that's the case that everyone reads in law school, uses that that classification. So it's been used before and applied in laws. It's just all I'm saying.
Understood, but it's also been used to try to get material barred from being in schools. I'll give you an example. That there are programs that go out throughout the state that are run by program members of the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. These are programs that are age-appropriate, evidence-based programming that are designed specifically by grade level for students K through 12, and they are designed to teach children about personal body safety, right? When is it okay to, how should people interact with you and your body? And it all starts with, my body belongs to me. Touches in the private area should never be a secret. If I feel uncomfortable, I can go talk to a trusted adult. right? Those are the three tenets of personal body safety programming. And there are many times that these standards, these Supreme Court standards, are brought in and used inappropriately as a cudgel to say, well, this is not appropriate for children at the age of 6 or 7. And so we shouldn't be doing this kind of programming. And that's an inappropriate application of that. And so without defining that what the appropriate application is of serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value,
Okay, let's stick with the
Then we-
amendment and go through it
that's the amendment. This is what we're talking
section
about,
by
Senator.
section. I know, but I hear back and forth.
Okay, well, I'm clarifying why I have objection
Okay.
to lines 1 and 2.
You
Is
essentially
that
object to section 3, right?
section 3?
It starts on
Oh,
page 1.
section 3, yes.
Okay.
I
How about
feel-
section 4?
I have no notes until section 7,
Okay, so what is,
under which I object to the time frame on lines 2 and 3 on page 3 of that whatever determination has been made shall not be subject to a mandatory review again within a 10-year period. It's an awfully long time. So I would say that while Senate Bills 33 and 208 are tangentially related by subject matter, this amendment seeks to combine them, and I don't feel that like they both are looking to do the same thing. So
Page 3, line 2 says, subject to a mandatory review.
yeah,
Okay, it doesn't, and then it says that it can be reviewed. That doesn't, preclude it from being reviewed at a different time. That's just a mandatory review.
yeah, shall
it-
not be,
So it can,
but shall not be, not may not be, but shall not be.
for a mandatory review.
Mhm.
It shall not preclude the school board from establishing a local policy that allows or requires additional challenges and review.
Yeah, I think that that's a very long time not to have a mandatory review of curriculum material that's been banned.
okay, so Senator Abbas, do you have read the amendment? What's your thought on the different sections here?
So
Do
I
you
think
agree with them, or is there something that you do not agree with?
I think the time frame they used 30 days. If you look at page 2, line 4, I thought that there was an issue they raised where if it was like over the summertime and the school's not meeting, so I feel like instead of saying calendar days or maybe we say school days just to be consistent. And
Are
then-
you reading in section 2, within 10 days of receiving a written complaint?
Well,
Line
on the
4
first
on
page.
page 2.
that happens a lot throughout the bill. It says same thing on page 1, lines 14, which is within 10 days of receiving a written complaint. We should maybe clarify that's 10 school days. Also, if they're on summer break or school vacation, 10 days is some that may get washed away just from that. So I think making it school days. I'm not sure. I think that would address that potential problem.
Yeah. But
That's a pretty easy fix.
Yeah, I don't know how school personnel work during the summer if they're there in the office every day and it talks about the superintendent designee shall review their complaint. Are they in office every day in the summer?
They're in office a lot, but they take vacation, so they could be on a 2-week vacation, and then there's your 10 days are gone.
But also, your school board may have to meet if it gets to that level.
Every
and-
month.
They don't usually meet in August. Most school boards.
So this, I think, if you made it school days, that might. And then keep in mind, that's the maximum time that needs to go by.
So if you don't have any school days in the summer, what do you do then? Wait until the fall?
Technically, yes, but keep in mind, that's the maximum amount of time. That's the deadline to meet it. So could they sit on something for 2.5 months? I mean, technically they could.
Okay, that's all
But-
right. I can put in school days.
Am I way off with
Isn't
that?
it
You
a
can just
practice?
shake a head, yes or no.
Is it school days or is it business days?
That's what I'm thinking, business days.
Because that way, during the summer, I mean, I have a high school friend who's a school librarian, and she does have some hours during the summer because of summer school. So there's that.
I agree with business days.
Business days.
Well,
calendar
business days will
days,
be okay.
days.
If you say business days, that takes the
Business
weekends
days.
out,
All right.
which would normally be out of a school day year, but it covers the whole year, not just when they're in school, knowing that some school
Okay.
librarians and these concerns don't have a aren't just locked down to the school year. They can happen at any point during the year.
I know what it's like to get served with legal papers and right before vacation, so it can be rough.
Yeah.
What
that
is,
would-
what is
that
your
could be
thought
summer
on the
reading
other
for
sections?
I think the procedure it follows is crispy. Their language is pretty tight. I'm still kind of trying to match that and fit that in to Senate Bill 33. So to make sure the language is consistent, I don't think the policy is necessarily the problem, but is this going to serve as a replace all?
Say that again?
Would this serve as a replace all amendment?
No.
So I'm just trying to I've been lining it up.
I
No,
don't,
that-
no, it does not.
I don't think this is bad. I think this cleans up some of the time periods that they raised may have been too stringent.
Okay. Should on the page 2, should we say within 30 days of receiving the complaint, and the 30 days, 30 business days?
That works.
I like the business days.
And I think on page 2, line 11, it says within 10 days, so that'll be 10 business days.
Any other thoughts before I go to Senator Sullivan?
So,
Okay. Senator Sullivan, how do you feel about these sections?
I agree with the changes to business days. And as far as page 2, line 1 goes, we could also say, if we're gonna go down that argument about, the supplemental materials, we could also say age appropriate is not defined anywhere ever, and that's subjective as well. So I'm definitely,
What about the 10-year period?
I'm fine with that too, because it says mandatory. Someone can request it at any time to be reviewed again.
Shall not be subject.
Right, but then it goes on to say,
Within-
this shall not, however, preclude the school board from establishing a local policy that allows or requires additional challenge and review. So the school board could say, okay, we can't do it, we're going to review these at a different time. They still have that ability.
Okay.
I'm
Senator
okay with that.
Prentice.
So the 10 business days, fine. I don't know how to tease out the applying contemporary local community standards. When Googling it, I did come across obscenity. So I got that. I understand how it's been used, and I don't have a full understanding of how it's been used, nationally in law, but there's something to look at. But whether it's the appropriate terminology for here, the one thing, and maybe I'm missing this, and I think it should be added on to page 3, is we're not being specific enough about, and the language, at least I feel like that this is really what we're not saying, but should be saying, starting on page 3, line 3, this shall not, however, preclude the school board from establishing a local policy that allows or requires additional challenge or review to say materials that deal with race, ethnicity, culture, or the views, culturally appropriateness, or the views of of a particular author. Because I think that is in the crux of all of this, that we're kind of, I think we might be circumventing with this language, but that's, we have found success, and they have found success across the country in pockets where they have been able to establish local school board policies that they can all agree with in the communities that have to do with these particular areas. My opinion. I think I wrote down race-based, culturally view, race, nationality, political views, cultural appropriateness. I'd like to see that added in and be more specific. and give the school board, again, it has worked in other places.
Is that
Madam
listed
Chair?
anywhere that we can just
But
say
that's-
as mentioned in?
I'm just putting this out there, and I would love to hear from other members of the committee, and I think Senator Alshaw's got her hand up.
Senator Altshuler.
Yes, so building on what Senator Prentice is talking about, Senator Abbas, you mentioned in committee that you were at one point that Salem had a good policy. So took a look at the policy, and there's actually a section, if we could pull from the Salem policy and replace C, which is, I think, what Senator Prentice is talking about, part C of section 3, which is fairly undetermined, and add in what the Salem policy says is the superintendent or designee shall not restrict material because of the race, nationality, political, or religious views of the writer or of its style and language. Every effort will be made to provide materials that present all points of view concerning the problems and issues of our times, international, national, and local, and books or other reading material of sound factual authority shall not be prescribed or removed from library shelves or classrooms because of partisan doctrinal approval or disapproval.
So this is your addition.
This is a suggestion
Okay.
to add this pulled from a current policy that is working and has been approved by a large community's school district to replace C, part C of section 3, which I think is what is undefined
But why replace C and just don't add B?
because it's not, it's nebulous and undefined, and we have language that is defined.
Well, I will tell you, under RSA 650:1 definitions, when it comes to material is obscene, if considered as a whole to the average person, in there's 3 elements, and the third element says it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. That is in our RSAs today. So that language, when you take that, and I know this, and I get the, not to speak for that legislator, but I get the feeling where they took that from. I mean, when you say it's not defined, we use that as part of our definition to establish whether a criminal offense has occurred. So,
This isn't a criminal, I mean,
oh,
we're suggesting a policy, a statewide educational policy.
but we're,
So why not take an educational policy that is being used in a large district? It's already being used well. I mean,
but if
from
someone,
your district, Senator Abbott,
No, I'm
and
not saying
on
you-
your suggestion.
I'm
So,
not saying you put that in there.
Don't interrupt each other, please.
But
Okay.
you're telling me let's remove C and make that section C, and I'm asking you why can't you just make that section D? You can add it to it, but taking it out, you're taking out the section that is, we're trying to. This whole purpose of this is when there's objectionable material in, an academic setting. There's now a procedure to address that, where a parent would have a procedure. And when we're talking about what is objectionable, we're not talking about something that's educational. We're not talking about suppressing political thoughts because one doesn't agree with, someone's political philosophy. What we're talking about is, that's why if it lacks political value, all right, it doesn't mean I agree with the politics. It's still a political, if it's a political theory or political philosophy book, then it doesn't fall under this definition. So we're removing that, but that would potentially harm any side of the aisle there. I'm just saying, you're taking something from the Salem School District, which I appreciate because I think they do an excellent job, but I don't see why we would remove C. If anything, you add a section D.
I have a suggestion. We've spent 20 minutes now, and we haven't gotten anywhere really. So how about re-referring both 33 and 208 for further, to work on it, because obviously there are very different opinions, and we need to really, if we're going to do this, we really need to do it right.
I would support
So,
it not to pass.
I would
With this-
suggest a
with this-
re-refer and further work on these 2 bills together.
I would support a re-refer. I'll make that motion.
Well, do we have
Which one we're considering 33?
33 and 208? 208 is Senator Archuleta's bill. This is the one that we've been talking about. And 33 deals also with public school materials.
So which one are we dealing with right now? 208?
Well, I think two
I
oh
would say 208 right now, but I think that we should do include a re-refer to the 33 as well, because this amendment here is suggested for 33 as well.
but I think for 208, it's a very different policy.
Yeah, but the amendment that we got includes 33. Okay, we'll take 208 to begin with. I would like to have a order of re-refer.
Oh, so I'm going to second that motion for the purpose of the discussion and ask the prime sponsor to speak to the motion of re-refer.
You may speak to the motion of re-refer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, clearly, I would love to see a policy go forward. I understand that we are getting into the weeds really quickly, and I actually appreciate the discussion. I hope that in good faith, that we can continue this discussion and bring in those stakeholders again, maybe, and start fresh in the next year. And I would support a motion to re-refer while,
Well, from what I hear is just that there's so many things going on, and I don't think we can discuss it just between the five of us. We need to have some time and really look at RSAs and look at some things and really put it together so we have something that can stand the test of time.
so to meet that, request, I would support re-refer and offer to put together a briefing that pulls all of this together for us to use in a work session,
Excellent.
if that's,
So we have a motion to
Amenable.
re-refer. Do we have a second?
I
On
seconded
208.
it. I seconded it. You made the motion. I seconded
Okay.
it. So,
I would support an ITL of 208. I think that
I
was a
would as
different, that was a different direction. All right, I mean, and I think some of the issues raised in discussion of 33, it's stating there's confusion on what is otherwise a well-settled area
Yeah,
of
we're
laws.
dealing with 208 right now.
I would support an ITL, so.
And you have an ITL on
well, we got to
We
vote
have
on, we're going to vote on the re-refer
Okay.
first. And then we'll go to, if it fails, then Senator
Okay.
Abbas can make his motion.
I have a motion and a second on re-refer on SB 208. How do you vote? There's 3 for
yeas.
re-refer. And what do we have? ITL?
It's-
There's 3-2. So we
There's
have
a
a
lot more
208.
wrong with that bill than just.
we have a 3-2 on 208.
well, I hope you'll join the work session, and Senator Sullivan. Thank you.
Oh, maybe Senator.
As I said, there's a lot more wrong with that bill than just.
Huh?
Heard.
Do you want Senator Alshuler to take it out?
Sure.
Would she want to take it out? Do you
Would
want
you
to?
like to take it out? Senator Altshuler, do you want to take it out?
Yes, thank you. I'll do that, Ryan.
Senator Ward, may I just have a quick comment?
Uh-huh.
I have come over my into my 5th year to really appreciate the ability when a bill is re-referred to take that time to do it to gather people together even further than you already have and get the work done. And that's for every time I've been involved in a re-refer, and I've actually gotten things fixed in a way that we could all agree on. Not just me, but I've seen other senators do it, and I appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna shut my microphone off.
Okay, let's go
Reach
back
over
then
here.
to, let's see, 209, 208.
209 is Senator
Yeah.
Abbas's bill.
Let's go back to 33 then.
Oh, so
That was just 208.
we did.
That
Yeah,
was 208,
208.
Oh, I'm saying we didn't do 130.
right?
208 is really for,
I got a motion on 33.
okay.
I make a motion to re-refer.
Second.
If I may, oh, my microphone isn't on.
Okay, we have a motion on 33 to re-refer. Let's see, get all my papers together here so I don't get that all mixed up. And that was 208, okay. And 33? I have a motion to re-refer.
You have a second, so,
And a second?
yep, Senator Alschuler, I made the motion, Senator Alschuler seconded. And
Okay.
if I may speak to my motion.
Yes, you
I
may.
think we're in the same place we were with 208, and it is an opportunity with both of these, given the, not just the work that, was the proposed amendment that was given to us by Barra Christina, pertaining to both of these, but the interest in the room and doing further work on this, I think that we should hold those both in the same place and maybe actually see them become one bill instead of two.
Yeah.
my
Any
10
other
cents.
discussion?
I would actually support, and not to pass on 33 with the amendment.
You support, you have, to pass
First, we
with the
need to deal.
amendment?
We have an
Dispose of-
motion on the table. We have a motion on the
Yes, we have a
floor.
motion on the table, I'll
Right.
re-refer, and I have a second, and then the discussion is happening right now.
Thank you.
I would support the ought to pass with the amendment, provided we just address the business days versus just regular days. Just, I think that's just,
Okay.
that was the only change I thought was appropriate.
So we
Can we
have,
to manage the first motion that's on the table, and if we get, if that doesn't pass, then then we can address this. Somebody can make another motion, and I'd be happy to engage in that discussion.
Okay.
But first, again, reiterating that, we're looking at a proposed amendment that deals with both of these bills, because the both of them are similar. It would, to me, to be proper in the future, like the pathway here is to handle them both the same way and try to get them ultimately to become one bill. We don't need multiple bites at the apple with this. We've been here before. That's my 10 cents. So re-refer on 33 is the current motion.
so who is to vote on re-refer? That's 1, 2, 3, and you want to see O2P. So there's re-refer goes 3-2. I'll be happy to take it out.
I would support, I would support the re-refer this one.
You support the re-refer?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 4-1. Then we can actually go on consent. So put it on consent. How many for consent? 2, 3,
I'll
4. Okay, so we put it on consent, but I'll still take it out.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
Okay, that takes. 97.
Senator Sullivan's bill.
So I have,
Inter-district school transfers.
so, I do have an amendment I'd like to bring forward.
And Senator Prentice. So what is the, I need a motion for the.
No, my amendment, I'm not doing. I'm gonna hold that and talk about it. Do you have an amendment for me? Yeah, pull it.
Okay,
So, I'd like to make an ought to pass motion on the amendment 2025-0245, and I'd like to speak to my motion.
And I'll
okay,
second the ought
there's,
to pass.
there's seconded, okay.
Wait a minute, do we need to do the underlying bill first?
No, we do
Yeah,
the
we-
motion first.
We have to open discussion on the bill before we can introduce an amendment.
We have an.
Respectfully, it's my old mayor days speaking here. I think we have to do an underlying motion and then go to your amendment, Senator Sullivan. I'm not trying to be disrespectful,
No,
I'm just trying to
no,
line
We
this
have,
up.
we have an O2P a second on
You have an-
97,
Okay,
and then we have an amendment on 97.
0245?
all right, so we had not to
we-
pass from,
We need to,
give OTP on 97? Okay, good, thank you, sorry, I'm just checking.
okay,
It's okay.
so now we can talk about the amendment.
Yeah, so this was a recommendation from Barrett Christina. And it just basically says that the school board must have a policy in place to address the fact, to address the instances where there is not capacity for that child. So they just have to outline what their process would be.
Senator Prentice.
So, thank you, Senator Ward and Senator Sullivan. I prepared an amendment and I had not talked, well, we did talk about it a while ago. And I would be willing to support your amendment if we could add in language to make this by a vote of this, make this enabling, make it by a vote of the school board, because not, I understand your intention, and for the larger school districts in the state, I think that this makes sense, but I don't think it's a one size fits all. So I want to make this so it's by a vote of the school board if they decide that they're going to have an intra-district policy. And then your language lines right up with that, but that's where I'd like to go. So I could support it if it did that, if we were able to add that in. And since we hadn't talked any further, I didn't want to introduce it today until we had this discussion in fairness and with due respect. And then if we couldn't get there, then we we would continue working on it. So, yeah.
So where would you
Thank you, I
put it
appreciate
under the amendment here?
Well, first I want, Senator Sullivan, could you live with that? Not should live with it. Could you be open to making that, change, make it by a vote of the school board? As part
Shall
of, that they've
adopt.
got to have the capacity and by a vote of the school board.
With all due respect,
The school board of each school district shall adopt a policy
Okay.
addressing instances in which there are more requests to transfer to a school than there is ability to accommodate students based on teacher-to-student ratio and existing school capacity. Are you talking about the school board having a vote?
Having a vote on whether they want to adopt intra-district transfers first. And then capacity is part of the consideration, because we talked about capacity in both, we talked about capacity with this and with another bill, which is not the same, but has that kind of has that
Okay,
pathway.
Senator Sullivan.
so I don't support that amendment.
Okay.
That language, I'm sorry. And this is because parents have come to me up against the school board for these situations. And they aren't usually done haphazardly. It's not like, I like that school over there, they have a better playground. There's usually really good reason for parents to want to move their kids to a different school. And I think this helps keep kids in that district where, there's a lot of people that push back on the EFAs. This is something that is actually usable, that protects the districts, right, and keeps the children in there. So I would prefer to keep it the way.
Okay,
But I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
you're welcome. And may I, Senator Ward?
Senator
I
Prentice.
think this makes sense for some. My whole, alignment on this is that it makes sense for some districts and not all, and I don't want to make people do it that don't want to do it. And I think that school boards that have been faced with some of the situations you've brought up will adopt a policy like this. So I don't want to impose this. I was out the other night at a very small town in my district talking with the select board, and they were talking to me specifically about, like large initiatives that we try to make them do when they have they have a $700,000 budget in general. It's like they're teeny tiny. I don't want them to be subject to this. They're in their school district. I think it works for Manchester. It works for Nashua. Honestly, would probably work for the city, that I live in, even some of the others, but that is my thinking on this. So, I appreciate your work and your thoughtfulness. So that's where I would support it. If we can't, I can't support it, but we'll just move on from there. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thoughts on the amendment? Do I have a motion for the amendment?
To pass on amendment, whatever I said before.
Uh,
You took it.
I stole that.
345S. So I have an ought to pass, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor on ought to pass?
Aye.
Aye? No? Altschuler? No?
Thank you.
So it's 3-2. Okay, now we go back to the underlying bill. I have an ought to pass with the second on the underlying bill 97 FN.
I'm your other eyes looking around the room.
So are we in
So,
discussing the
at this
remainder of the
point,
bill?
I'm saying, we go back to the bill. We
Right.
have passed the amendment 3-2. We're going back to the underlying bill, and I have an ought to pass, and I have a second on it. So now we're voting, how are you voting on the 97 F and the underlying bill
Are we
including the amendment?
may we discuss the rest of the bill outside of the, now that we've discussed just the amendment portion? There are other parts of the bill that we haven't discussed at all.
Okay,
During.
Senator Altshuler, you have the board.
Thank you. During the hearing, I did pose the question to Senator Sullivan about the references on lines 6, 9, 6, 9, and on page 2, 8, 7, and 8,
Okay.
with reference to approved private schools. And what was unclear was whether this bypasses manifest hardship or whether we are, how does that, if a student, a parent wants to move their student to what would be an approved private school, what's approved by the school board as a school that they use for special education services, or are you talking about just any private school within the district? And doesn't that then
let-
introduce the EFA program? Like
Let's start with the first page, line 6.
so what do we mean by an approved private school? What is,
That's existing law, and that we discussed in the hearing, 193.3, that Roman numeral 1 is already that is already existing law.
well, thank you for clarifying that now. At the time of the hearing, you had
You did say-
said that you would get back to me about that. I did not.
Excuse me,
RSA 193.3
Yeah.
is what you're talking about?
Senator
Let me go.
Ashler, at the end of that hearing, my aide Declan Donahue actually came in and handed everybody 193.3, a copy of 193.3.
So you're saying the section that we have here, 6 going down to 13 is in the original RSA.
Yes,
Okay,
it's not expanding that in any way, and I
and
believe
Senator Altshuler, you had another sentence or word that you
Still
wanted.
looking at 193, looking for that reference for approved private school. I'm sorry that I don't have that in this folder. They appreciate that maybe it was given to me, but it's not here.
Christina actually.
I have approved school in 193.3. Where, could you tell me where approved private school is referenced? Because that's
Senator
the
Sullivan.
question.
193.3 that we had it in the office.
I'm just looking for clarification.
So 193.3, Roman numeral 1, number C, prior to or at such a meeting, the parent or guardian shall make a specific request that the student be reassigned by the school board to another public school, public academy, or an approved private school within the district, or to a public school, public academy, or approved private school in another district. Thank you.
Okay, so your bill would supplant that piece, correct? The student be reassigned by the school board.
But-
Because when the school board is doing a reassignment to a private school, it's for manifest hardship. It's not for just a request from a parent that they would like their student to attend a private school. In order to get into a private school that is supported by the public taxpayers, it has to be for manifest hardship. So while it may be referenced here, it is also, there is policy in place that it's for manifest hardship. This, if I understand, SB 97 supplants that manifest hardship piece. Is that correct?
So it keeps that piece. And number 13, it says for request to change assignment to schools outside the district for requests made after July 1 for the upcoming school year. All I did was change the date. The superintendent shall schedule a meeting with the parent or guardian to be held within 10 days of the request. Then it goes on to prior to such a meeting. All of that language is already in there for manifest hardship. It's not replaced. It still says what they have to do. And then E states that in determining whether to authorize a request to transfer it to another school within the district, the superintendent shall consider only whether a specifically requested school has the ability to accommodate the student. So there are two different actions.
Senator Altshuler.
Okay, I followed you. I follow that, I follow where you've pointed this out. Where I'm stuck, and I'm hoping you can guide me through the thinking or where it is in the statute that you're referring to. Currently, if a student is going to have a school change or assignment that's in their best interest, that best interest outside of a public school to go to a private school. And so I'm referring, starting on line 6 of your bill, or an approved private school. Approved private schools in 193.3 are for manifest hardship. This change of school or assignment changes the reason that a parent can request going outside of their school. It takes out manifest hardship because now they can say, is your intention that if my student attends a public school, and there is a private school 2 doors down in my district, I can ask to have my student moved to that private school outside of the EFA program? Because that's the way this reads, is it says, the parent or guardian may apply to the superintendent of the student's district to go to another specific public school, public academy, or an approved private school. Right now, our approved private schools are approved for manifest hardship on a case-by-case basis. Are we now saying that a school that's 2 doors down in the district is a private school now becomes part of that equation and is no longer, like, that is another way to access private school outside of the EFA program?
No, I don't.
I'm not
I
following
don't agree
it.
with your interpretation of it because it does say that the parents have to have a hearing, they have to go for the board, and then on page 2, number 19, it does speak to the manifest hardship. But if Barrett Christina is here, if you'd like to weigh in on it, I'm
Well, who
happy to have his
pays?
opinion. Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Who pays?
But nothing.
No, let's not have an argument here. Let's,
I'm not
Senator,
arguing.
I've
I'm
asked
looking
Barrett
for
Christina to come up and
clarification.
give some clarification,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Christina.
No, we welcome you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Ruth. Morning, members of the committee. I'll be perfectly honest. I was multitasking back there. I caught part of the conversation. There seems to be some question about an approved private school and manifest educational hardship requests made to the local school board and best interest
You spend enough time in
determinations.
classrooms to know that that is exactly when you're going to get called on.
Right, exactly. So what is there a specific question? What are we trying to figure out here? I just want to make sure that I'm clear of what inquiries the committee has.
Well, Senator Altshuler has a very
So
specific.
you were asking
answer.
about manifest educational hardship and
No. Thank you for volunteering to come up to try to tease this out. The question I have for this piece of legislation is that SB 97 on line 6 says that a parent or guardian of a student may apply to the superintendent of the student's district of residence to change the student's school or assignment to another specific public school, and I believe this to be because it's intra-district, a public academy, and then on line 6, or an approved private school within the district. So my question is, currently, I asked if that bypasses the manifest hardship, because currently, if a public school student is transferred out of their public school because their public school is unable to meet their needs, it's for manifest hardship to go, and occasionally that is to a private school where then the school district pays that tuition to send that student out. Here, a parent or guardian can request that the superintendent move that student to a private school. And I believe in reading this, unless you can tell me otherwise, it bypasses manifest hardship. So I could go to the superintendent and say, I want my student to go to St. Fabulous, 2 doors down from my neighborhood public school, and have my district have to pay for that tuition, which I believe is outside the bounds of it would then move that student into an E EFA.
Sure. Thank you for the for the clarification, Senator. I'm going to back up just a little bit and give just a little bit of the history as to where we are with respect to RSA 193:3. That is both a best interest statute and a manifest educational hardship statute. Prior to, I want to say maybe 2019 or so, this statute sort of convoluted the best interest standard and the manifest educational hardship standard. It was not clear when a parent was applying for a best interest determination or a manifest educational hardship determination. Best interest and manifest educational hardship are two distinct categories with respect to the law and with respect to what a local school board would determine, and then potentially the State Board of Education would determine if there was an appeal from the local school board's decision. Best interest is just that. Is it in the best interest of this student to attend a different school? That used to be within the realm solely of transferring that child to another public school prior to 2019, 2020, 2021. We'll just leave it at that. Best interest, again, is it the best interest of this child for whatever reason? And that determination used to be made by the superintendent. The superintendent had some level of discretion to reassign that child to a different school without the school board's ultimate approval. And if you talk to superintendents that were practicing, that were in central offices 20, 25 years ago, I don't mean this to sound crude, but it was almost like horse trading. You take this kid of mine, I'll take that kid of yours, and we'll call it a wash on tuition, somewhat informally. Best interest. There was also a secondary aspect of that, which was the manifest educational hardship interest. It's not so much was it the best interest of this child to attend a different school. It was, is there a documented detriment to the student to remain in his or her current placement? Academic, social, bullying, whatever it may be. But in that determination, the parent had the burden, if you will, to prove to the local school board that there was an ongoing detriment. Not just that it would be better for the child to attend school over here, but there was a hardship and a detriment to the student here. Prior to, I think, 2019 or so, those standards were a little convoluted in the statute. So the School Boards Association, i.e. me, rewrote RSA, the pertinent provisions of RSA 193:3, where we bifurcated best interest and manifest educational hardship. So right now, if a parent applies to attend a different school other than the current school that they're assigned to, that first request is made to the superintendent. And that is on the best interest standard. Is it the best interest of the child to attend a different school? Again, prior to 2019, 2020, 2021, those reassignments were made to public schools. The general court has changed that statute a couple times over the last couple of years to include, and I'm reading RSA 193, the current law, 193:3, paragraph 1A. The parent or guardian may apply to the superintendent to a change of placement if the parent or guardian believes it would be in the best interest of the child. Paragraph B, upon such a request, the superintendent shall schedule a meeting within 10 days. C, prior to or at such meeting, the parent or guardian shall make a specific request that the student be reassigned by the school board to one, another public school, public academy, or an approved private school within the district, or to a public school, private academy, or an approved private school in another district. So current law already allows the parent to request under the best interest request, under the best interest standard, already allows the parent to request that they be reassigned to a private school in district or out of district, a different public school in district or out of district, or public academy. We use that primarily to bring in Co-Brown and Pinkerton into the fold as well too. So, and the same standard applies for the best interest as well too. Parent would reissue if the superintendent does not agree with the parent's determination that that it would be in the best interest, that family can then appeal the superintendent's decision to the school board. The appeal is not so much on the best interest standard. The appeal is on the manifest educational hardship standard, where the parent has to prove that there is a detriment, an ongoing current detriment to my child in the current placement. Again, at that time, though, the parent reissues their request: public school within the district, private school within the district, public academy, or a different public school outside the district, or a private school outside the district. As I am reading, and if there was an amendment, I don't have that in front of me. As I am reading Senate Bill 97 as introduced, paragraph 1A, the parent or guardian may apply to the superintendent of the student's district of residence, same language as in current law, to change the student's school assignment, one, to another specific public school, public academy, or an approved private school within the district. Period. That reiterates, is on line with current law. Continuing, the parent or guardian of a student may also apply to the superintendent of the student's resident district if the parent or guardian believes it would be in the best interest of the student to change the student's school assignment to another public school, public academy. Hang on a second, I lost my, to the superintendent. Or an appropriate, so to some degree it is changing. The parent is now applying best interest and or manifest educational hardship to the school superintendent. So that is a slight change. The assignment as to where the student goes, though: public school within the district, private school within the district, public school outside the district, or private school outside the district. I don't see that as a change in the statute. I see that as an option that the parents have to request under both current law and the proposed bill as introduced. I hope that clarified.
The only amendment I made was actually your suggestion that we had a policy around if there wasn't capacity, what
Right.
the school board would
Right.
do with those.
Yeah, I caught. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator
Sorry.
Archuleta.
Yeah, thank you.
So in the interpretation of 193.3,
Yes.
an approved private school transfer would be either for the best interest of the child as determined by the superintendent through a series of criteria, or manifest hardship. And so my understanding, and my question is whether my understanding is correct here, is that best interest is no longer determined by the superintendent anymore, and a parent may now decide that they would like to have their child moved to the private school 2 blocks away at taxpayer expense outside the parameters of the EFA program. And correct, because this says, SB 97 says that a parent or guardian can apply to have their student moved without regard to best interest, because it is crossed out on line 4. So we take away the criteria of best interest, and we take away the superintendent's input, and only now regard the parent or guardian who says, I want my student moved from my neighborhood school to the private school 2 blocks away in the district at taxpayer expense. And this is not as an EFA student.
As I understood the bill, and maybe I'm thinking of a different bill. We're tracking a lot of bills, as you may imagine. As I'm reading paragraph 1A of the bill, page 1, lines 3 through 12, as being about 90% there with what's already in current law. The only thing that it changes, as I see, is that it moves to some degree the manifest ed hardship determination from the school board, which is current law, to the superintendent under the proposed amendment, or not the amendment, but the proposed bill, page line 10 through 12. But I'm reading, my interpretation of the intent of the bill was that intra-district transfers have to be made upon parent request unless there is a capacity issue. So you know, I don't know how many school districts. Manchester obviously has multiple elementary schools, multiple middle schools, 3 or 4 high schools, if I'm not mistaken. Nashua, multiple elementary schools. I don't know how many middle schools, 2 high schools. There may be some K through 12 cooperative school districts that may have 4 or 5 elementary schools, for example. You know, I don't know if a parent is going to send their kid across town or across a co-op 30 miles away to a different elementary school. I don't think this is going to impact, I don't know how many, most school districts do not have multiple elementary schools. Salem probably has multiple elementary schools, 5 elementary. So in some situations, yeah, larger towns, that may be impacted. A traditional K through 8 district or a K through 12 district that has 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, 1 high school. And the reality is, I don't think we're seeing a lot of the manifest educational hardship requests in elementary school anyway. It's usually when you get into middle school and the bullying and the kids get older in high school and things of that nature. So, I mean, I don't know the breakup of how many, what town each has how many school districts. But as I'm reading the bill, I don't think page 1, lines 9 through 12 are significant changes. The manifest ed is a little bit of a change, but if we're talking about intra-district changes only, which I believe is the primary intent of the bill, you know, I don't think that this is going to be, you know, there may be some changes in Nashua and in Manchester across the high schools. I believe those are the only 2 towns or municipalities in the state that have more than 1 high school. So,
And also, although if the best interest of the child is crossed out on line 4, it's added in line 8. So it's still there.
yeah. Right.
That I appreciate all of that, but it doesn't answer my specific question, which is, does this bypass the EFA program? Right now, if I have a child in an elementary school in Manchester, where I have 5 other public schools, possibly a charter school, and I want to move my child from this public school to this neighborhood school over here, or to this neighborhood charter school, I can ask for that transfer. But if I want my child to go to the Catholic school, right now, I need to go to use the EFA program. I can move them out of the public school, apply for an EFA, take that money and apply it towards tuition. How do I read this not to be, if I'm asking an approved private school in the district, if I want to move my kid out of my neighborhood public school into the Catholic school 2 doors down, how does this bill not give me the ability to do that and have the school district pay the full tuition rather than me go get an EFA for part of the tuition?
The bill does allow for that, Senator, as
does.
does current law. Outside of the EFA program.
Thank you.
Current law, RSA 193:3, paragraph 1C, allows for a parent to request, current law allows for a parent to request that the school district send the child to a private school because of either a best interest or a manifest educational hardship, i.e. requesting that the local school district pay tuition to the private school. That exists in current law. And I don't believe that the bill changes that.
All set? Okay, so we have
Thank you.
back to the,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Back to the bill with the underlying amendment, and I think that Senator Odell, you probably had your understanding supported by the discussion that we just had. So do I have an OTP? I'd like to have an OTP on the Senate Bill 97 FN.
As amended. Ought to pass as amended.
And second? All those in favor of OTP on 97?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
No. You?
No.
No. Okay. So there's 3-2. And
I'll take it out, Senator.
it's only when we take it out. I wonder if we could put this on consent and take it out. Okay. We're gonna have to speed up here if we're gonna get anything done today. Oh. 101.
Move to refer.
Public school. What did you say?
Make a motion to re-refer. Send it to
I'll
101.
second.
Re-refer at 101. There's to put the kid in any public school in the state.
Yeah.
Any discussion on it? So I have a motion to re-refer and a second on 101 FM. Anybody who wants to say anything? Okay, those in favor of re-refer?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's 5-0. Great, we'll put that on consent.
Move to consent.
Consent,
Aye.
5-0. Okay, good.
Taking it out.
Two. Who's gonna take it out?
I'll take it. It's fine.
You wanna take that one out too? Okay, you can take it out. Sullivan. Um, 203.
Move on to pass. Senator Wood, I'd like to speak to my motion when you're ready.
Have an order pass and a second on 203. Any discussion on it?
Yes.
Senator Walsh.
You want? Senator Altshuler?
Yeah, thank you. So there's overwhelming support for this. We had 754 people sign in support of this. And this is a taxpayer accountability bill, you know, that it makes us keep track of the dollars to make sure that your student participation, you know, matches the mandated state income threshold. And that when, you know, you're using taxpayer dollars, you're using them for the, you know, you're using them under the parameters that the state has set up. And when you become ineligible for a program like any other program in the state, you know, then you are not eligible to use that program. It does not mean that you're not, you can't further, you know, go to whatever school you had chosen. It means that you are now making more than the eligibility threshold, and you will have to absorb those costs on your own for those choices. And like every other program that we have income eligibility for, it just gets in line with our other income eligibility requirements.
Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Senator Ward. I agree with Senator Altshuler, and here's the thing, just, you know, it's been going on my 5th year of trying to understand why we would not want to, you know, why we would not want to put in a mechanism that ensures eligibility, why this is the only program where public dollars flow out to, you know, private schools or flow outside of government, that has no guardrails at all. It is we have a responsibility to, you know, to our residents, our constituents, and our taxpayers. And I think, you know, this doesn't end a program. This says you have to prove that you have to continuously prove that you're eligible. So that, I don't see what's remotely unreasonable about this, and I appreciate it coming forward once again. So I'm happy to vote for this once again. Thank you. I think you've got 2 hands up over
Yeah.
there.
I
know you
don't,
guys
I don't support it not to pass.
Just want to say something. I appreciate the responsibility that we should have of looking after the taxpayers' money. But I also think we have a responsibility to the children who are going to school. And for a child, or for the parents of a child, never to know if the kid is going to go to the same school next year or not, because they have to worry about whether they get $10 or $15 more in their income. It disrupts the whole education program. And I think that we may need to do something as far as looking at the financial eligibility, but certainly not every year. Senator Abbas?
I don't support it not to pass, and I would move to ITL. I think you said it well. It's really about the kids' education, and I think that gets lost in our debate sometimes. And I would hate to see if someone, perhaps, let's say, had one commission or they got a COLA increase at work, all of a sudden that their child is not eligible for the EFA program, and that can potentially cause them to have to switch schools. They went to that school in the first place for a particular reason, and I think ultimately, what's the real consequence? It's the child's education. So I'll support a ITL.
Senator Sullivan?
Yeah, so this bill actually sets up education insecurity and instability for a lot of families. I know families that participated in the children's savings account scholarships that lost their scholarships because they just went a few dollars over and there was no way to make up that difference. But as far as honoring what's set up in law, this, as it stands, is how the parameters were set up in law, that they qualified once and then kept it for the duration of the child's education. So I think we honor our contract to our parents and we ITL this bill.
Senator Prentice?
Thank you, Senator Ward. And I did not include this in my original comments, but the hearing report, I believe, reflects this, that I have suggested, and it's not included in this bill. I understand what you're saying about moving, a child gets into a place where they're doing well, the parents start to do, they exceed the threshold, and so now there is a movement out of a school that could be sudden. And I would agree, could be disruptive, but I suggested building in, and I have had this, I don't know how many times I've had this conversation, a soft landing or a transition for these children, because I'm not completely insensitive to that. But what I am very sensitive to is that we just don't have any check or balance on this. So there has got to be a middle ground. I saw a full page ad yesterday in a newspaper in this state recruiting into this program, like they're with no guardrails at all. So if we can build a soft landing in, we need to do that. But I think we have, I feel that we have a responsibility to be stewarding this money, all public dollars, correctly. So I'm sensitive to where the children are at and their success. I think there's a way to do this, and then we should start focusing on that along with the eligibility, and there's a win-win in that somewhere. Thank you.
Further discussion? Senator Altshuler?
Yeah, I just like to point out that, our LIHEAP program to heat people's homes has an income eligibility requirement that you have to meet every single year. And, I would pose to you that making a few dollars over the income eligibility for heat, and you could get your heat turned off. And so when you make more than what the state has determined is your entry into the program, and then you make more than that, you are ineligible for the program. And should we raise the cap on the eligibility for LIHEAP once you're in the program? We pay for your heat forever? Why not? We're doing it for education. When you apply for food supplement, you have to prove your eligibility. And so when you make a few dollars more, the idea is that you make enough to be able to feed yourself and your children. And when you don't, we help you. And food insecurity, I think, is like a wildly important topic, and we don't allow people to stay in those programs unchecked year to year to year. And we know that, the majority of people in this program, we know that the majority of people in this program had never been using our neighborhood schools to begin with. They weren't low-income families who couldn't possibly do other choices. They were using financial aid from other places because we have this information. We had it in the oversight committee. So we know that there is money coming from other avenues. The state isn't the only player in financial aid for private schools. And yet we're the only player in financial aid for private schools that doesn't ask that you prove that you need that financial aid on a yearly basis. This program is sending money to private schools that make their students apply for financial aid every single year. And we are the only factor in that financial aid equation that just keeps giving money regardless of your income once you get into the program.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
So I would just say the difference with those programs is that we have a constitutional obligation to pay for a child's education. We differ as to where that money goes. We have different opinion on what that is, but that the money should follow the child. We have an obligation to that child, and we have to do it for their 12 years of education. That's the Constitution. That's the law. So that's the difference.
So I have a motion OTP and a second, and hope just a favor of to pass on this bill. Who?
Dylan made the motion, I believe.
I didn't make the motion.
No,
Oh, you
I
did?
made the motion.
pass. I'm sorry, I thought you said 8.
I have a motion of ought to pass on 203. You vote
Aye.
ought to pass?
Are
Ought
we,
to pass?
are you
Yeah.
asking?
And the
Aye.
rest is,
Absolutely.
no, so
Nay.
that's 2 to 3. So can I have another motion?
About to pass?
I'll second.
What was that?
I mean, sorry.
ITL.
Sorry.
We'll take that, Senator Abbas. Thank you. Can we vote right now?
See, I knew you were
What was
listening.
the-
Blamed me.
What was the motion?
ITL.
To legislate.
And you second that?
I second
Okay.
ITL.
So that's ITL.
Still blaming Victoria.
That's,
I'll take it.
you don't want ITL, right?
No,
No.
no, I just wanted to
So
make
that
a
would be-
comment.
You want to make a comment, okay?
May I?
Certainly.
All right, and this goes back to our discussion on 203 that Senator Sullivan, I agree with you. We have responsibility to all children in the state, and the Constitution talks about all children in the state, and adequate education for all children, and that is where we, as a legislature and as a state, continue to not, like, we don't have that fix, and we've been in court once, twice, 3 times. I think we're on our 4th. So we have got to solve that, because this only deals with, say, these many kids when there is an entire state full of children that are struggling. So I will agree with you on that. And what are we going to do?
I totally agree that the whole educational funding system is fixed. So we need to do something, and I don't know how, but we'll work on it.
Conversation for another day.
Yeah, it was brought up,
Yeah.
so I wanted to agree and give
I
my
think we
5
I
cents.
think we all agree with you.
Okay.
It's a mess.
Who wants to take it out? Abbas will take it out.
So we want to vote on,
And expedient to legislate.
we.
Oh, we didn't vote on it.
ITL.
Yeah, we didn't go for
We voted
didn't vote
3
on
to
it.
2. 3 ITL and no ITL is 2, so it's 3 to 2, and Abbas will take it out.
Okay.
Uh,
204.
204, I'd like to have a note to pass on that one.
Second. And I'm happy to speak to it.
Go ahead, Senator
Thank you very
Prentice.
much. So I like any bill that, well, I should say, bill, I like most bills that will focus on making sure that children who are hungry have a place to be fed in schools. I'm preferential, although I like Senator Long's bill. I think that Senator Fenton's does, it apply, it's an opt-in, as I understand this, and the kids that can pay, and the kids that can't get lunch. And I think that is important. So I just wanted to put those out there. I think that this is one of the things we can do for all hungry children, and there are hungry children in this state that go to school, and we can improve their overall educational experience. We know that. The data's there. Even the Heart Association spoke to this. The data's there to support that.
Right,
So, yeah.
But we have an amendment to this bill, I just realized.
Oh,
Senator Abbas.
So that amendment, I was, one of my concerns was that we don't need to address that, was really the financial side of
Okay.
it. And I think I'm confident with the bill as it's written.
Okay.
And I'll trust that the
Ignore.
finance committee will deal with the hardest part of, I think, implementing this policy, which is the financial side.
Okay, so I have
I'm
not
not introducing that.
and a second on 204. All those in favor of O2P, or there's a further discussion on the bill? All those in favor of O to pass on 204?
Aye.
I,
That's 5-0. Consent?
Consent.
5-0. And
I'll take it out.
Prentice will take it out.
Prentice will.
Okay. So then we have 205, which is very similar. And I think I'm just gonna ask for an ITL on that one.
I'll second.
I have an ITL motion and second on 205.
okay,
Any
ask
discussion on
why?
the bill?
yeah. Why?
This is the second food bill.
Right, but
And there's another one coming up in another. Not in this committee, but another one.
The bill that we just passed is an opt-in, and this is a shall. And we heard testimony that not all schools are equipped to do that.
Yeah, this one
So-
is 100%
Yeah.
reimbursement for it. So, Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Senator Ward, and as I said before, pardon the pun, but every bite at the apple to feed hungry children, I'm gonna take. I really like 204, but I'm gonna support 205 because I really think it's important we get something across the finish line this year. And just like an earlier discussion, there's a place sometimes where two bills can come together and we can work something
Yeah.
out. So I'm gonna support this with that good heart intent and see
Okay.
where we end up.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else wants to?
So everyone
something.
understands that 204 and 205 do amend the same RSA, so we kind of have to pick one, and I believe, Madam Chair, I think we're going the right path by.
Okay, if
ITL.
somebody thinks about it, they can always have a floor amendment, so.
That's true.
So I have an ITL on 205 because it's very similar to the other one. We can probably work together. Like I said before, there's a third food bill in the Education Funding Committee, so I think we need to do something to put them all together in one bill instead of having three separate ones.
And we have done that before.
So ready to vote? Who votes ITL on 205?
Aye.
Two. And you're gonna, okay, so that's 3-2 on that
Nay.
one. Okay. And I can take it out. So that's 205. Okay. 206. Requiring public schools to adopt policies to limit the use of cell phones.
So I'd like to make a motion ought to pass. I'd also like to bring forward an amendment.
I have an ought to pass.
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, let's discuss it. Well, then, let's look at the, we have a couple of amendments.
So one amendment is an error, so I'm not going to bring that one forward, and that is 0298S.
Not bringing it
Which one is it, 653?
On-
Do you want to do Richardi's?
I don't think
298.
Well, I don't believe that this was her amendment. I believe that this was supposed to be my amendment and there was a mistake. Maureen, is that
206?
correct?
This one?
0298.
0298S, yeah.
I'm only standing up because I want to stand up for a minute. Sit down too much.
Did your watch just tell you to do that? Because mine makes me crazy telling me to stand up in the middle of
not-
things.
Exactly.
But I know Senator Richard did have an amendment. It is 298?
Well, so the one you filed was 0653S,
Okay,
and then Senator Sharp filed it separately earlier in the year, 0298S.
she did, okay. Okay, thank you.
There's sort of similarities in here.
I think so. I don't see the difference.
I guess I have some questions about determined by students, I guess it's students, apostrophe S, medical disability or language proficiency shall not prohibit students with disabilities from using a device to support their learning as identified by the individualized education program and to support emergent multilingual students. And we're talking about cell phones in the classroom where kids sit there and play and answer phone calls instead of listening to what the teacher has to say and learning. So, and I know that a lot of teachers would like to have the kids not having their cell phone there because they find it very disrupting to their ability to teach. So, yes, Senator Prentice.
Thank you, Senator Ward. So the amendment is targeted, like, they would, well,
Which one are you referring to?
aren't we talking about 298S?
Is
I
that
was reading
introduced?
from the 653. They are very similar, both of them.
Hold
It's
on.
just,
All right.
Oh, with any, okay.
But they're very similar. I guess that, not I guess, what I know is that if there is a reason for a student to have a phone, because of, I mean, now one thing I think is, is great is that you can use a phone, like I can use my phone and record a conversation that automatically becomes a transcript that I can use and, for like notes for meetings that I'm at. And I believe that that is part of, the issue here. It could assist with managing, a disability, or, an educational disability, and gosh, even potentially a medical one, medical disability with, say, reading of a blood sugar. So I'm not opposed to that. I guess, I think that the original intent, the original intent to keep them out as a distraction, is fine with me. And I go back to when I was in school, and if there was an emergency, your parents called the office, and the office called the child, and the child came down, and you dealt with that. I mean, we can go back to those days, but if we do have the ability to use them for specific needs, I don't think that that's problematic.
So
Am I missing something?
Senator Sullivan.
we're speaking to the amendment, right?
Right.
Okay,
Six-
so on this amendment, and what differs from the amendment that I brought forward, which is 0653S.
that's fine.
In Senator Rishardi's amendment, it keeps education associations, although I believe teachers should be a part of the conversation. I don't think the unions should have a place in making policy. So, my amendment removes the word associations.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
It should not be a union issue.
right. So I would say I would not support amendment 0298 for that reason, and I would bring forward another amendment.
Okay, well, let's deal with 298 then
Okay.
first.
So, and I don't have a problem. Oh, man.
I have 2 copies of 298. That's my problem.
I don't know what's going on.
Yes, Senator Prentice.
So I thank you very much. I think that the unions representing, since they've been brought into this conversation, that the unions representing thousands and thousands of teachers that are the ones that are managing these cell phone issues in the classroom on a day-to-day, with all due respect to administrators, principals, and such, are an important part of the discussion. I mean, I like to get down to the brass tacks of how this can help with medical and in learning disabilities. But if we're gonna, zip into that, then I don't have a problem with keeping all stakeholders that are involved, and especially teachers, who many of them happen to be represented by unions and are the ones in front of the classroom and managing these. So
I agree with keeping teachers. I just don't, and this is going to be a local policy, and therefore I don't think that the unions have a place in making policy. So that's not usually
I think
that they participate in that.
the
process,
Parents and the teachers?
Right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think so. It's making policy or responding to policy. And so I see the unions often representing, you know, the thousands and thousands of teachers in the state come in on, you know, and advise us on conversations that are, or the perspective of the teachers. And that is, to me, is important to this, and that's just been my experience over the years. Yeah, that's been my experience over the years, and I think it's a valuable perspective, and I don't want to eliminate that from the conversation because it, you know, it comes from, say, a union perspective. The unions represent the teachers, and the teachers are in the classroom. That's all.
Okay. But the teachers should be able to meet with the parents and families and the superintendents in their particular school and come up with a policy, and has nothing to do with whether or not they belong to a union. So that the union represent the teachers, but the teachers can do certain things without the union getting into it. And I think it would be easier if this is just a local issue, stays local, and the teacher and the maybe the school boards and the staff, the teaching staff and the families and the parents can get together and discuss what to do about the cell phones. I know that parents have some concerns. They want their kid to be available immediately if they want them. And on the other hand, I think it's very destructive for transmitting any kind of teaching if the kids are all wrapped up in answering phone calls or answering things on their cell phone.
Madam Chair, I think after hearing both explanations, I would be more supportive of Amendment 0653 as opposed to 0298.
Well, I need to have I like the ITL, the 298.
Yeah.
Well, I think we just voted.
Okay.
We
Because I
don't,
think
we
some
don't,
of the important things are in the 653 one.
Madam Chair, I think for procedure purpose, if we vote on 208, I think we have to vote, I mean, the 298, the amendment, we just vote to whether to adopt or not. If it doesn't get adopted, then I think we can offer
Right, we have to vote on the amendment, on the 298. So who supports the amendment 298? Altshuler and Prentice. And who opposes it? 1, 2, 3. So that's 2 to 3. So that one goes down. Then we have amendment 653.
I'd like to bring forward, ought to pass an amendment, or to adopt amendment 0653.
Second.
And I believe I spoke to the amendment, and as, you know, there's a lot of conversation for the whole bill about, we didn't have cell phones in school and we did all right, but I'm old enough to remember payphones in the hallways.
Yeah, me too.
And outside, and we have police call boxes too. We'll have to explain that one to the young people in the room, but we did have ways outside of the office to contact people, especially in an emergency, and now with cell phones, those things have been removed and people rely solely on those. So that's just something to consider in the conversation too.
So who is going to decide what the exemptions are?
That will be their local policy.
Will
And
that
as we
be
saw,
locally in this
School
class bill?
district policies shall not prohibit, so the school district policies are written.
Define a policy of personal device used by students during the school day.
so the original bill said that they would be prohibited. cell phone use would be prohibited.
Yes.
And so I removed that and gave it more local control so the school districts can decide what they want to do. I had teachers reach out to me and tell me that they use a program called Cahoots, which is an educational tool
Yeah.
that they use phones with. So there are certain circumstances where children are allowed to use them for technology, and not everybody has a laptop that they can use. Not every district has that. So there are opportunities. I also think if we prohibit it, we use cell phones every single day. They're going to use it when they go to college. They're going to use it when they go into the workforce. And we remove the opportunity to teach them how to use it responsibly if we just have a prohibition on them.
I don't think that this is an issue of banning cell phones. It's just banning cell phones on during the instructional period. They can bring the cell phones in, they can put them in the backpack someplace or put them in a cell phone jail or whatever, and they get the cell phones when they leave the classroom. So I don't think we're banning cell phones.
At least that,
That's not the issue. The issue is not for the kids not to sit there with their cell phones when the teacher is trying to teach.
Right. I think we all agree with that one.
and I think,
Senator
Madam,
Evans.
I think, Madam Chair, it leaves the school the ultimate discretion on how far they want to go with their restrictions. So if they want to have an exception, I think if a school doesn't have the, technology available, perhaps that can work. And I think the IEP exception is perfect. The 504 exception makes sense. And even, like the translation devices on some of these phones is actually quite phenomenal. So for someone who's learning English, I think, it would allow them to at least be able to communicate with their peers. Another great exception. So I think this sets out a good policy to work with.
So I think what I hear is an OTP on 653
Yes.
on the amendment.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Senator Ward. And so this, although it doesn't say local educator associations, this still involves the voice of the teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's important to me. I had no problem with it being stated a different way, but I just want to respect the people who are in the classroom facing this every single day.
Absolutely. I think the teachers should absolutely be involved in it.
Okay.
So. Ready to vote on the amendment? All those in favor?
I
Aye, that's 5-0. So, the underlying bill with the amendment, I have an ought to pass,
That's amended.
and I have
Second.
any further discussion on it? So ought to pass with the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent.
Yeah.
Senator Oshler?
Said aye and
Okay.
consent.
Second.
It's
I agree.
5-0. Consent?
Yes, ma'am.
5-0. Abbas, you take it out.
Yes.
Now, one more. 207.
Move
Well,
it.
actually,
IPL.
We
207.
have two more, I think. We have
Yeah,
209.
yeah. Have we heard? Yeah, we heard 2.
If we heard 209, just, I don't think, we haven't voted on 209.
No. 207,
We'll move
requiring the Department of Education to administer the education reform.
I'll move ITL.
I'll second.
I have an ITL. Yes, Senator Prentice.
Thank you very much. So I can't support the ITL. I talked about it in the hearing. We do already pay for at least one person and over at the Department of Education. With all of this, we still hired a person to manage some part of the program and connect to the Children's Scholarship Fund. But it is, I think it is incumbent why couldn't we pull that in-house and do that in-house? Why are we taking that money and putting it over into the Children's Scholarship Fund rather than into roles within state government? And, over the last couple of, 5 years, this has been a continuous conversation. So I have no problem doing that. I think that it's smart and I wish we would. Thank you very much.
Well, maybe wishful thinking, but this is requiring the Department of Education to administer. And if the Department of Education doesn't want to do it, did anybody ask them if they want to do it?
So, with all due respect, Senator Ward, when I was a state employee, we weren't always asked. there were times when the wisdom of the legislature told us what we were going to do. And this is a place where I feel like
Okay.
we should actually be, I know that they might not want to do it. Maybe some do, maybe some don't, but just pushing this out to a private entity where they are actually capturing, these dollars and any, rather than within the Department of Education, our state Department of Education, I think that matters. So I would prefer when state employees and state agencies agree with us, but my experience is there were times when I was told by the legislature exactly what I was going to do, and I did it.
In the higher ups?
Yeah. I wasn't a commissioner, but I ran a state agency, and I was told, you are going to do this.
Okay, I just think that you should be part of the conversation. At least you should be asked if you're willing to do this.
They've been asked, and they don't want to do it, but they have never wanted to do it. And from a leadership perspective, the Department of Education, they are lock, stock, and barrel in favor of this, and the ability to just push it off for some, for the fund to handle rather than bring it in-house and manage it within state government where we have all of the accountability and oversight I think is necessary for this program. That's where I start to split on it.
Okay.
And, I can remember, I think that might be your phone, at least one particular piece of legislation where we were asked, we disagreed, we were part of the discussion in the legislature, and I was told, you're going to do this. And so we did it.
Okay,
All right. So that was the wisdom of the elected officials.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Any further discussion, Senator Altshuler?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to speak to my bill. So what we do know is that the way that the program is set up now is that it is in the program's interest to grow the program, because the more they grow the program, the more money they take in. Because they're allowed to take 10% for administration costs. So they can grow their staff, they can grow this advertising program. It's encouraging them. There is no state program, no state agency that gets 10% of its operating budget from, and allowed to keep growing the program because they're going to get more money back. It's financially, it's a wildly out of control program, and we need to bring it back under state control because it is our state education trust fund money. And the money that, for instance, the Class Wallet program that charges 3%, they're retaining the interest on that money that they're holding on the outstanding balances. So not only are taxpayers funding a program that by design is allowed to take 10% off the top to continue to grow the program to get more money, they then transfer money into another vendor that is hired by our third-party vendor. So what does that make it? A fourth-party vendor that gets interest, that makes interest on state money that sits in this Class Wallet program. And meanwhile, all that's going on have been obstructionist in working with the LBA. And we had to pass legislation to create a joint legislative oversight commission to get information. This is a program that really needs to be under a state agency so that it has accountability, and that we can see where the money goes. Mm-hmm. And that also, if there's interest being made on money that's sitting around, why are we not making that interest? Why are we allowing for a fourth party vendor to be making interest on state money? It's absolutely boggles the mind how we have allowed for this program to continue to burgeon out of control under a third-party contract. Mm-hmm. So it's time that if this is a program that the state is interested in existing and growing, then it needs to be under the state's control.
Okay. I'd like to tell you, they don't take, the cost is not 10%. It was 10% in the very beginning because I needed to get some new software. the cost of the program is a little bit, I think it's 8 or just a point over 8%.
We have been told that they are only spending 8%, but they have not provided the documentation to us on the oversight committee to prove that assertion. We don't know. They're saying it's only 8%. They can come in next year and say it's only 6. But again, we don't have, they have not proved that to us with an ounce of documentation. And additionally, they are giving away, you know, the money that goes into the class wallet, that group gets to collect interest on it. So it's such a racket that they are allowed to, that we are like, here, take this money, grow the program, and you can take up to 10%. So we don't know. Maybe they did 8 before. We don't know for sure because they didn't give us any documentation. But we know now they've put out a really aggressive digital and print media campaign to grow the program.
I think that's what it's called.
I think what needs to be done, but we need to get more of the information. I think we can do that under the oversight committee. I think we have to put some teeth into it, what we request them
Yeah,
to
here's your
provide.
teeth. Like, this is a whole jaw's worth of teeth. Let's
Yeah.
get the money back.
Yeah, but you're asking the DOE to take over the program and you're
Yes.
telling them what to do. And I like
We're
to
giving them $1.5 million to run a program. Like the money that they would get if we only gave them the 5% is still an enormous amount of money to run a state-run program that any other, I promise you, if Fish and Game had an opportunity to run a program like this, they would grab it.
I like to involve them in the discussion because I think that they have a lot of interest in what's happening and involve the people on the scholarship committee, on the 2 programs that they're running, what's the other one? The EFA program, and sit down and have a thorough discussion between all the parties involved, what we need to know, what we need to have in front of us so we know what the cost is and address the costs, the different costs. You shake your hand.
I am so very much with you on that. And were that information brought to us over the 2 years that the oversight committee has been in existence, then perhaps the New Hampshire legislature would not have had to pass legislation to compel the organization to participate in the legislative budget office's audit. They have been obstructionist in giving information.
Okay.
You and I have been on this committee, and you and Senator Prentice have been on that committee, where over and over and over we are only given lovely anecdotes about how wonderful everyone thinks it is, but we have no hard data. We have no outcome data. We have nothing.
Senator Wood,
Senator Sullivan.
yeah, I just for the record would like to state that right on the Children's Scholarship Fund website, you can get the IRS form, audited financial statements, Department of Revenue Administration, Education Tax Credit Program reports. It is all very transparent. It's at your fingertips and anybody can go look it up and see what's there.
Well, right now we're dealing with that we are requiring the DOA to take over. And what I'm saying that I don't think that we can do that without discussing it in detail with them and have them at the table and discussing it, why, if they are willing to do it and how they're going to do it. So I have an ITL with a second,
Yep.
and I think we're ready to take a
Yes.
vote. All those in favor of ITL
Aye.
and not in favor is 2, so that's
Nay.
3-2. Okay, I'll take it out. So 2:09, we have 7 minutes.
I would move not to pass.
I'll second to pass for purposes of discussion or wherever we're gonna go with this. I don't see there's any opposition to this. Well, a couple people, but you're the only one that came in. Senator Abbott.
Right, and-
And the constitutional.
You want to review quickly what the bill is all about?
So, I did provide a letter that was actually, it's a company and on my constituent who lives in my district, who asked me to put this in. He was actually traveling in Florida, not the best vacation time, but I think his letter really explained it in its best context. And the whole idea is when the state aid that's being given towards building aid for development, really the best way to do that, you want to make sure the applicant really has all their ducks in a row. And if you're going to have a major renovation on a school without
Oh,
a
okay, okay.
owner's project manager, and I don't think they're really ready for prime time. It makes sense to have that really at the beginning phase. So you will kind of want, it's more of a, I think it would assist better in the use of money, making sure it's done the right way. I can speak particularly in Salem, the middle school renovation, it was, what we passed in the warrant article, that it was completed with an extra, and $16 million was not used. So it went under what was passed by $16 million. If you have, the right people in line, that's how that happens. There's actually a warrant article on the ballot coming up in March to the school board someone on the school board put it forward to make it so they can't spend that money because they didn't need to. And
Okay.
so having that in the beginning phases of this, I think, would really be helpful. Also, they were the benefit of some of the school building aid.
So we have a motion, right? You had all to P?
Ought to pass.
Ought to pass. And we have a second. Any further discussion on the bill?
No, no.
All those in favor of ought to pass?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 5-0. Consent?
Consent, yes.
Consent.
And we put Abbott's down for that one, just in case it comes up. I think that finishes.
Any idea how many we have coming over from?
We have 3 bills on tomorrow.
Okay.
And all the FNs have to be out on Thursday, on the 6th. Let's see. There are no FN bills tomorrow. There are 3. And depending on how fast they go, we can maybe exec them. Otherwise, we have until later in March to get those out. But we got out all the FN bills on
Then
that one.
I'd like to make a motion to move out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor of getting out of executive session?
Aye.
There you go.
We are out of
my phone.
executive
You can use
session.
your cup. You'll hear it in the next street.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Do we need a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, I'll-
All those in favor? I called Senator Ward and checked in with her on callers. We matched the school choice. Oh, wow, all of it, yeah. She must have known when she made the request. Mr. Prentice, can you wear your eggplant colored top today? I said, sure, I'd be happy.
I would have worn purple. Someone else. I think I got one somewhere.
Thank you. Good job with package of breaking.
We had no. We got all the